Loneliness can make dangerous things feel safe. It can make you call disrespect potential. It can make you call mixed signals confusion. It can make you stare directly at a warning sign and convince yourself it's not really there. And the hardest part is this. Deep down, you usually know. You feel it in your stomach when they cancel again. You feel it when their words don't match their actions. You feel it when you have to keep explaining basic things a caring person shouldn't need explained. But loneliness whispers louder than reason. It says, don't ruin this. Don't ask too many questions. Don't be too difficult. What if this is your last chance? And suddenly, the very red flags you would warn someone else about become things you excuse because being with the wrong person feels less painful than being alone with your thoughts. That is where people lose themselves. Not all at once, slowly, quietly, piece by piece. Stoicism teaches something uncomfortable but freeing. Loneliness is not an emergency. It is not proof that something is missing in you. It is not a command to lower your standards. But when you forget that, loneliness becomes a powerful force that can convince you to walk straight into pain with your eyes open. The Stoics believed suffering often begins when emotion controls judgment, and loneliness can cloud judgment more than almost anything. Because loneliness doesn't just make you want connection, it can make you desperate for relief, and relief feels urgent. That urgency is what makes a red flag easier to excuse. Someone ignores your texts for days and then returns with charm and affection. Your mind notices the inconsistency, but your heart feels relief because they came back. Someone avoids commitment, keeps things vague, gives you just enough attention to keep you attached, then disappears when you need them. And because you were afraid of losing them, you call it bad timing. You tell yourself they're overwhelmed. You tell yourself they're scared. You become their interpreter instead of paying attention to reality. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to see things clearly, not emotionally decorated, not softened by hope, not distorted by fear, just clearly. And clearly means accepting this. If someone repeatedly makes you feel confused, drained, anxious, or emotionally unstable, that feeling matters. Your peace is giving you information. And ignoring that information because you don't want to feel lonely often leads to pain that feels far worse than loneliness ever did. A lot of people don't ignore red flags because they're naive. They ignore them because loneliness creates a false sense of scarcity. It tells you connection is rare, that if you walk away, you may never find anyone again, that if you set standards, you'll be alone forever. And when the mind believes something is scarce, it panics, it clings, it settles, it bargains. A person may meet someone who constantly criticizes them in subtle ways. Their appearance, their ambitions, their personality. But instead of stepping back, they tolerate it because at least someone cares. Someone may date a person who refuses accountability, turns every disagreement around, and makes them feel guilty for expressing needs. Yet they stay because the thought of starting over feels terrifying. Or maybe a friend constantly uses you only when they need help, never checks on you unless they want something, and drains your energy every single time. But because you hate feeling disconnected, you keep saying yes. Stoicism teaches that scarcity is often an illusion created by fear. Peace is never rare. Respect is never rare. Self-respect is never something you should trade for temporary company. And the moment loneliness convinces you that being mistreated is better than being alone, you are negotiating against your own dignity. There's another reason red flags get ignored when loneliness is present. Fantasy becomes stronger than facts. You stop relating to the person in front of you and start relating to your idea of who they could become. You tell yourself they just need time, that they'll eventually communicate better, eventually become consistent, eventually stop lying, eventually prioritize you, eventually become emotionally available. But Stoicism asks us to deal with what is, not what we hope someday appears. The version of someone you imagine can feel comforting. But your life is shaped by their actual behavior. If someone repeatedly breaks promises, that matters. If someone disappears when things get serious, that matters. If they constantly say beautiful things but do very little to back them up, that matters. A lonely heart may build an entire future from tiny moments of attention. A late-night phone call becomes, they care deeply. A compliment becomes, this could be real. A brief apology becomes, they've changed. But wisdom asks a harder question. What pattern keeps repeating? Patterns reveal character more than isolated moments. Anyone can say the right thing once. Patterns tell the truth. And sometimes loneliness creates a fear so strong that you start abandoning yourself before anyone else can. You become easier to please, easier to manipulate, easier to overlook. You stop speaking up when something bothers you. You laugh at things that hurt. You pretend you're okay with less effort than you deserve. You shrink your expectations so you won't scare them away. You accept half-hearted communication, last-minute plans, emotional inconsistency, broken trust, because asking for better feels risky. You fear if you say too much, they'll leave. But Stoicism reminds us that silence in exchange for approval is expensive, because eventually the person may stay, but you disappear. Your voice gets quieter. Your instincts feel harder to trust. Your confidence weakens, and you start wondering why you feel exhausted all the time. It's because pretending not to notice pain is exhausting. Betraying your own truth drains you faster than rejection ever will. Think about everyday situations people excuse because loneliness is pulling the strings. Someone only reaches out late at night when they're bored or need emotional comfort, but never makes time during the day. Someone flirts heavily, makes promises, talks about the future, but avoids defining the relationship every time you ask. Someone says, I'm just really busy, yet somehow finds time for everyone except you. A person may constantly compare you to others and make you feel insecure, then suddenly become affectionate when you pull away. A friend may gossip about you, then expect your support the next day. A family member may disrespect boundaries over and over, but guilt convinces you to keep tolerating it. These aren't tiny things, these are signals, and loneliness has a way of painting over signals with hope. Stoicism teaches that your peace matters enough to pay attention. The calm part of you already notices. The wise part of you sees the inconsistency. The challenge is having the courage to trust what you see before your emotions talk you out of it. A powerful Stoic truth is this: discomfort is often the doorway to freedom. The reason people ignore red flags is because walking away feels painful in the moment. Saying no feels painful. Creating distance feels painful. Letting go feels painful. Sitting alone feels painful. But avoiding short-term discomfort often creates long-term suffering. You stay because you don't want the ache tonight, and end up carrying months or years of anxiety, heartbreak, confusion, and disappointment. The Stoics practiced voluntary discomfort because they understood something most people resist. Discomfort can strengthen you when you stop running from it. Being alone on a Friday night can feel uncomfortable. Not texting someone who drains you can feel uncomfortable. Ending a one-sided friendship can feel uncomfortable. But that discomfort often passes, and what rises afterward is clarity, strength, self-trust, space to breathe again. Pain avoided becomes pain delayed, but pain faced with courage often becomes peace. One of the deepest signs you may be ignoring red flags because of loneliness is how often you feel anxious around the very person you want closeness with. Your stomach tightens when they take too long to reply. Your mind races when their tone changes. You replay conversations, overanalyze words, wonder if you did something wrong, feel relief when they return, feel panic when they pull away. That emotional roller coaster can feel intense enough to mistake for connection. But Stoicism values steadiness over chaos, peace over emotional addiction. A healthy connection may not feel dramatic or obsessive. It often feels clear, grounded, consistent, safe. Loneliness can make chaos feel exciting because the highs feel powerful, but the crash afterwards steals your energy. Real peace doesn't constantly make you question your worth, and maybe the hardest truth of all is this. Loneliness can make you accept breadcrumbs because part of you has forgotten your own value. Not because you are weak, not because you don't know better, but because pain can wear people down, rejection can wear people down, time alone can create doubts. And slowly, you start wondering if maybe this is the best you can get. Stoicism challenges that thought directly. Your worth is not determined by who chooses you. It is not reduced by silence. It is not damaged by being alone. A season of loneliness does not mean you are behind. It does not mean you are unlovable. It does not mean you should accept disrespect to prove you can keep someone close. The wrong connection often costs more than solitude ever will, because solitude may feel empty for a while, but the wrong person can make you feel empty even while standing right beside you. The strongest people are not the ones who can tolerate the most pain. They are often the ones who can recognize a red flag early and walk away before their emotions become too attached. They trust themselves enough to leave when something feels wrong. They don't need endless evidence. They don't wait for betrayal to become catastrophic. They don't stay until they're completely broken. They pay attention. They observe patterns. They honor their peace. And they understand something powerful. Loneliness passes. But staying in unhealthy situations too long can leave scars that take far longer to heal. The Stoic path is not coldness. It is not pushing everyone away. It is wisdom. It is knowing that protecting your peace is not selfish. It is necessary. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is refuse to trade your peace for attention that was never truly meant to nourish you. So if you've been ignoring red flags because loneliness made you afraid to lose someone, hear this clearly. Being alone is not what breaks people. Staying where your peace is constantly disturbed does. Pretending not to see what your heart already feels does. Silencing your instincts over and over just to keep someone around does. Loneliness may feel heavy, but carrying the wrong people in your life feels heavier. And eventually, the pain of betraying yourself becomes impossible to ignore. The Stoics understood that peace begins the moment you stop fighting reality, the moment you stop making excuses for repeated disrespect, the moment you stop trying to turn confusion into commitment, the moment you stop shrinking your standards just to avoid an empty room. Because an empty room can be filled again. A lonely season can pass. But the damage of staying too long in the wrong connection can leave wounds that linger far longer than solitude ever would. You deserve relationships that feel clear, respect that doesn't have to be begged for, loyalty that doesn't disappear when it's inconvenient, care that feels steady, honest, and real. And if someone's presence keeps stealing your peace more than it adds to your life, it may not be loneliness you need to escape. It may be the fear of letting go. Sometimes the strongest move is not chasing, not convincing, not waiting for someone to finally become who you hoped they would be. Sometimes the strongest move is trusting yourself enough to walk away and protecting your peace until the right people meet you there. If this message spoke to something you've been feeling lately, leave a comment below with the words, "I choose peace." I'd love to hear from you. And if Psychovest helps you see life more clearly, build stronger boundaries, and grow through Stoic wisdom, subscribe and join us. There's a lot more ahead. Protect your peace, trust what you see, and never let loneliness convince you to ignore what your soul already knows.